Red meat increases your risk of diabetes by 74%. You hear a lot of studies that open up like this and have conclusions like this. You hear and see a lot of physicians and health experts and PhDs saying things like this online, and then they cite their study and no one really bothers to even look at it. But if they do, they may be too misinformed or lacking in knowledge of the science to really understand and interpret why it may or may not be correct. And I'm here to explain to you that you are not alone in the confusion. However, fortunately, you are able to rightfully, rationally, reasonably dismiss with that study entirely from the get-go. Wait, Eddie, whoa, that doesn't really make any sense. That seems very anti-scientific. Yeah, it's actually the exact opposite. It's pro-scientific. It insists upon the scientific method. What am I talking about? Well, human nutrition science is what is really tapped into when it comes to the citation of these studies. You know, blank increasing your risk or decreasing your risk of blank by blank percent. Okay, these studies all are derived from human nutrition science. And I'm here to say that human nutrition science is not science at all, okay? And that's not anti-scientific. That is the exact opposite once again. It is pro-scientific. It is insistent upon the scientific method. Why is that? Well, human nutrition science is based upon an area of science of statistical inference. Statistics. People have heard about statistics before. Statistics are all around us. We encounter statistics all the time. Polling data, for example, in the political realm. Okay? Probability. Okay, what's your probability of discovering or drawing this card from a deck of cards? I mean, we talk about this all the time, okay? And probability is based upon inferential statistics, okay? Well, statistics, and then there's a certain branch of statistics called inferential statistics, which is basically based on the premise that you can infer things of an entire population based on a sample from that population. And what this video is designed to do is explain that inferential statistics is inherently, unfortunately, okay, inherently based upon a fallacy. That fallacy being exactly what I just explained, that you can infer things about an entire population based on a sample from that population. Why is this a fallacy? Why is this anti-scientific? Well, the thing about science is that if you are going to insist upon the scientific method, which you ought to do if you are wanting to engage in science responsibly, you require control. When you're performing an experiment, you have to have a control group, okay, that sort of controls for the confounding variables. It makes the confounders in the experiment constant. You control for them, okay? It allows you to manipulate only the variable that you are studying and see if the change in the results between the two groups or the two, you know, for example, if you have two petri dishes, if you're doing a cellular biological sort of study, are actually due to that manipulation of that one variable, or if confounders interfere with the result. This is why it's important to have a control. Well, the problem with inferential statistics is that your cases, in other words, your participants, if you're, you know, it's basically referring to the people that you're studying. Your cases are not identical across the board. You must have those variables controlled for. You must have the confounders controlled for. Well, you might be thinking, well, they're all people, so what confounders are you talking about? Well, everyone is genotypically and phenotypically different from each other. Every single person. Because if we weren't, we would all be identical in appearance and behavior, okay? In every aspect, we would be identical. We're clearly not. We have different genotypes, and every genotype has a myriad of different respective phenotypes. Okay, your genotype is basically characterized as the genes that you actually have in your body, in your cells. Your phenotype is how those genes are expressed. Okay, so I have one genotype. As I sit in front of you, you are looking at one genotype. Okay, but you are looking at one specific phenotype. Okay, I could express many different phenotypes. I could be fat if I introduced the wrong stimuli into my body, the wrong externalities into my body. Okay, I could be extremely skinny, rail thin, okay, if I starved myself. Okay, these are all phenotypes, depending on what behaviors you engage in. The fact that you cannot control for these variables means that inferential statistics is inherently based on a fallacy, okay? If you draw from a sample of a population, that population being different in every respect on the most fundamental level, then you cannot extrapolate your results from your sample to the entire population. You can't do that. And so you run into issues. For example, in inferential statistics, the line that is drawn that basically makes it to where it's irresponsible to extrapolate your results from your sample beyond that line is arbitrarily chosen, okay? If you draw a sample from the state of Mississippi, if you're in the United States, and it's in one specific city of Mississippi, let's say you're doing a social experiment, can your results be extrapolated to the entire state of Mississippi? Well, probably not, because every single city and town is different in their own respects, okay? The line by which it's irresponsible to extrapolate your results beyond is arbitrarily chosen. If you poll from one city in Mississippi, can you extrapolate those results to the entire country of the United States? Well, obviously not, because the culture in every state is different, okay? Inferential statistics only works if all of your cases are identical, if all of your confounders are controlled for, okay? This is another reason why it's also irresponsible to be using the word risk, chance, etc., any causal language, anything that implies a causal relationship, to describe the results of your study that you performed on your sample. Why is that? Well, once again, the people in your sample are not genotypically and phenotypically identical, but even if they were, those people are still engaging in different behaviors. Those people are subject to different confounding variables that are impossible to control for. There's another concept called spurious variables, which are variables that also function as confounders where they interfere with the actual result being studied, but that are not accounted for, that we're not actually aware of, because there's always the possibility that there's a variable that we're not considering. So the very concept of a spurious variable means that even if you could control for all of your confounders, it's still irresponsible to be convicting and say that there is a causal relationship being made. That is your opinion. May or may not, okay? And this is why I say anything that is cited from human nutrition science can basically be thrown under the rug, can be thrown into the trash can, okay? It has utility, and I'm not pretending like it doesn't, okay? We have epidemiological studies, for example, that basically, they show very strong inferences that smoking probably causes lung cancer, okay? Epidemiological studies with relative increases in incidence, not risk, they'll always do that, risk, no, incidence of lung cancer of 11,000%. Okay, that's very large, okay? But you still cannot inform upon causality with that. That is your opinion, okay? As soon as you cross that line of being convicting and saying, no, I'm right, that's causal, you have made a grave mistake that is potentially dangerous and deadly. Actually, I'm serious. If you start making causal links about something causing something else, like this causing lung cancer, well, then you basically justify the government banning it, don't you? Yeah, you do, don't ya? Okay? If someone comes up and says, well, red meat is associated with cancer, so it must be causal. Well, now you've just given the government a reason to ban red meat. Potentially, at least. Do not do this. People put way too much faith in their own models of the universe, okay? There was a video that was just done about this, that was just made. A genius video, by the way, okay? It's called Why Intellectuals Are Idiots. You may have seen it in your feed. It's been going viral on YouTube. Very good video. And it's exactly what I've been talking about on my channel and in my book, Contrainidicated, for a very long time. Pick that book up, by the way, if you haven't already. Link in the description below for audiobook, paperback, and hardcover. And by the way, I've finally found a way to really get my ebook into a reflowable format very fast, and things are looking up in that department. So I told you I'd be doing this. So, anyway, I thought that I would let you guys know about this. No, these studies cannot inform upon your risk of anything. They can't inform upon your chance of developing anything. They cannot do it, okay? It's not possible. Human beings do not like the idea of not being able to establish order in a chaotic universe whenever they would like to. At any point that they'd like to. Well, it sucks. Learn to deal with chaos. Because if you have this overarching, irresistible desire to establish order where there's chaos, even at the expense of responsibility. In other words, to a degree that makes it to where you irresponsibly establish order where it should not be established, you are extremely dangerous as a person. You need to understand when we cannot establish causality, which is basically never. Causality is an ideal like God is considered to be an ideal. You strive towards it, okay, to the best of your abilities, but you will always fall short. That's how this goes, okay? So, with that being said, do not listen to these human nutrition science studies, okay? Refer to the hard sciences to establish what we ought to be consuming, what is indicated for us to be consuming, what is contraindicated for us to be consuming, etc., etc. Okay? And that includes comparative anatomy, biochemistry, human physiology, observational paleoanthropology, some chemical anthropology, physics when you start talking about calories and all that stuff. Refer to those sciences, okay? Because you'll get far better inferences than looking at this garbage human nutrition science. Okay, if inferential statistics were really some sort of be-all end-all when it came to establishing truth and predicting the future, well, we would be able to predict the weather, wouldn't we? And we still can't do that. We still can't, even to this day. Oh, it's going to rain tomorrow. No, it won't. No, it's not. Sorry. So, anyway, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts about this in the comment section below. Also, once again, buy my book, Contrainidicated, a closer look and revision of mainstream health axioms that have perpetuated illness, disorder, and disease for over a century. Again, link in the description for all the formats that are available at the moment. And also subscribe to the Patreon if you haven't already to gain access to 1 week early uploads, ad-free content, uncensored content, and an exclusive Discord server. And also, the link on the bottom of the screen. What is that link? Well, that is a link that will bring you to an amazing site with amazing products from an amazing brand known as Cerule. If you purchase product through that link, you will get a permanent percentage discount and permanent free shipping when signing up for monthly deliveries. And if you email me behind the scenes at edgoki14@gmail.com, I can tell you how to earn these products for free, because who in their right mind wouldn't want that? But of course, I wouldn't recommend purchasing any product at all, especially these ones, without knowing what they are. So fortunately for you, I have a video linked in the top right corner of the screen, a Cerule Products video, which is a complete elucidation of what these products are, who should take them, why you should take them, when to take them, etc., etc. And I would also further migrate to the description below to find a video that I did on these products in further detail, as well as the company of Cerule itself, which I think is incredibly important if you're willing or considering to buy these products. Who am I giving my money to? Well, I have a video explaining just that. So, with that being said, join me next time when we are basically dispelling with the notion that science is in any way a be-all, end-all of truth. Because it really isn't, is it? At least inferential statistics and human nutrition science. So, till then.